I'll tell you what, this is called devoted love. This is, oh gosh, childhood memories. I trapped this marsh all through high school, but it's not about then, it's about now. And the marsh for me is a great reminder of our prehistoric people and how important water was. And now, even more importantly, is you, trying to get you on good sites, trying to make each trip to the field better than the trip before, or something this year that you never had before. And that's going to be the discovery of a marsh, a bog, a glacial bog, or a portage. And there's things that you can do now during the winter to get secure, find these things. We're going to come back and revisit this place in the spring when it comes alive. Right now it's kind of freezing over and we got geese and ducks going back and forth, but all the busyness is out of sight. It's under the water. And we'll take a look at that this spring. But I'm going to talk about this in a minute. Right now I'm going to get out of the snow and the wind. It's cold out here. We'll see you in a minute. Oh, this is so much fun. I'm going to tell you, it was cold out there, but I just wanted to introduce you to the idea of water sources. I had mentioned that in the last video. There were 12 things that I really want to labor over to help each one of you become the best of the best when you're field walking. And I know that all of us think that we're experts, and in some ways we are, because we spend a lot of time in the field. But I promise you, there's so much more that we can learn and learn from one another. And one of the reasons we're gathering now is just to show you what can happen when you bring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people together who are field walkers, and some of the exchanging ideas and getting from A to B to C. It's a lot of fun. So we will revisit that marsh when things thaw out. And but now during the winter, this is when you connect. And my suggestion is that all of you, no matter where you live in Ohio and most other states, they have a soil and water conservation district office. Those people know in your county where your big swamps are, your marshes, glacial bogs, and that is probably a good place to start, because these are, in my opinion, on the top 5 places to visit when you're field walking, okay? So thanks for enjoying the weather that's going on in Ohio right now, but we found a nice, comfy, cozy place to gather, and I get a chance to reiterate that repetition, really, though it might seem boring, is a very powerful tool to use in your learning repertoire. And so what I have is a reminder. We took a look at a couple things the last time we were together, and I talked about the power of these particular things: color, shape, size, texture, and exotic. And I quickly covered those, but today I want to take a quick look at a couple. And then we're going to get into some things that were just coming out of the field recently. Where I am last week, I was out. We're looking at the end of December. We're looking at temperatures that were right around 55 to 60 degrees. And today we're looking at a wind chill around 10. Things happen fast here in Ohio. So anyway, let's go up here. Color. This is not just an academic exercise. I'm hoping that this is a life-changing procedure that you'll use from now on. And so to do that, and I'm going to ask my camera perhaps to come in a little bit closer, because what I want you to see right now is color. You know, we can talk about the items, and we certainly will, but right now, color. So let's start with these. These were all field finds, and I can tell you for a fact, every one of these were covered, they were buried, and there was just a tiny bit showing. Remember me talking to you about patterns and context? That's another one of those 12 elements that I want to teach and work with you so that you see how all this ties together. So when we look at these celts, there's hopefully some things that are just jumping out at you right now. Patterns. They're not blue. They're not Coshocton gray. They're not Pipe Creek weird browns, but they're a distinctive kind of a gray-green color. Now we have different cultures represented here, And we have different time periods, especially in the archaic time period represented here. And that's not where I want to go with you today. What I want to do is get you ready to get into the fields, because you're going to have some warm-ups during the winter months, or if you're down south and the rice is already off the fields or the cotton's been picked, man, you get to go out and walk all winter long. We don't get to do that up here. So this is my color, and I call it kind of a green or a gray green. And I've had so many people with me, and even one of my videographers, when there was just literally a thumbnail showing of this color, and I said, "Hey, there's a cell," and I know she looked at me like I was out of my mind, but I said, "Dig it out, it's going to be a cell." And but I knew it because I learned to recognize color, but then also texture, and I knew that this was a polished texture. So with this color and this polish, I don't even need a small fingernail. I can tell you exactly what I got, even though it's under the ground. I told you earlier that I have over 150 celts now from one county. And it's not that I have a machine that knows how to find them. It's just that I've learned to take my principles and put them to work. And that goes back over here once again. Color. Now you can see that there is a shape, but these were buried. And all I saw was color and texture. So all these in mind, but I think color and texture are going to get you there quicker. We're going to look at some hammerstones in a minute. And with the hammers, you're going to be looking at shape and size, because they can be all shapes and they can be all sizes and they can be all colors. But the dominating thing is going to be this. Most of them are going to be hand size or smaller. When I say hand size, I consider this a hand size right here. Earlier I mentioned they look like a potato that's been in somebody's fruit cellar all winter long, when they get that old person look. And don't you look at me when I say old person look, where they start shriveling up like this. And but there's a distinctive look, but I'm talking about size right now. And so I put a golf ball down because someone had recently asked me, how small can hammerstones be? And my answer was, well, as small as the fingers need be to hold it, or the job that's required of it. And I had shared this different ovate type hammer with you folks. And I just ran this by a friend last night who's a lifelong walker. And I said, Jeff, what do you think of this idea of them holding it in their hand while they're napping a piece of flint? And then that's why I don't golf. And he loved it. He said, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. So quickly, the hammers could be any size. And I'm going to ask one of my buddies if they'll run around and fetch that golf ball for me while we're looking at this. So let's just go with the integrated sizes from kind of the little guys. You see that they can be, thank you so much. They can be from very small, and they can integrate up and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And for me, this pretty much would be about the maxing out on the size for hammers in most of the counties where I walk. But if we look at this one, there are no peck marks on this at all. Yeah, maybe we can dispute this one a little bit. But I had mentioned a word to you, and it's called a cache. So if I'm going to do hammerstones all summer long, I'm going to go to a creek somewhere and fetch the stones. And you just get a bunch of them. You bring them back and maybe use a few, maybe use some, maybe use all of them, and maybe there's a few left over for the next year. So even though there's no diagnostic information to tell you that this one in particular was in somebody's hand and being used, it still could be a vital part of the cache waiting its turn in history. So that's some of the adventure of field archaeology. And they're not all around. Most of them, by far, most of them are going to be these just weird rocks that came out of a stream, and they brought them up, or glacial till that's on the glacial moraines. And so they can be all kinds of shapes, but when you pick them up, you can see that they've been altered. This has been altered right here. I'm going to turn them around. This has been altered, and this alteration goes clear around to right here. It's been altered. Most of the hammers that we find look like this, or look like this. Piece of flint. Now I call these little, I'm not going to tell you what I call them, but they're kind of like hefty little pieces of flint, but they have a feel, they have a weight. And so I always pick these up and I look them over and, okay, right there is my fruit cellar potato right here. This was used as a hammer, but in the process it broke from the really hard hammering. And I have a remnant Hammerstone right here. And so you can get them in all shapes and sizes. It's a real delight if you can get them in a round position. But again, we're going back to what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to change your field walking experience forever. Geometrically, round color. And we looked at texture. Remember I said the fruit cellar potato with little dimples, little strike marks, percussions all over it. Okay, really important things. Size, about hand size and smaller. You can think of a golf ball, probably, or tennis ball. That's a good thing to keep in mind. We mentioned color with the celts, and that's in Ohio. That's a giveaway. Now these are that slate type material, but these are leaning a little more toward granite. They're still celts, but you see the color differential. We have a different material. These dominate in north central Ohio, all the way over to Akron, Canton, all the way up to the lake, all the way west and down toward Columbus. This tends to dominate. But this one is a little more granite oriented, and these are unique celts right here. Fortunately, this one was laying completely exposed when I walked by it, and this one also was totally exposed. But color, shape, size, texture, got to put that in your head. This one came off my archaeological site. It was in the sifter, and we saw this. And I hope you, as you're looking at this, can see the color. And this is the result of a word that I want you to start your own little dictionary of archaeological words that are going to change your experience out in the field. And this is called oxidation. When there's iron, which is in many, probably the majority of most rocks, and it's heated, you get a process called oxidation. And visually, it turns out to be a red or an orange or a yellow color. This particular rock is gray, but when it's been heated, it changes colors. So because of that, here we go again down the hill. I put him up here. Because it was in a sifter, and we know that on a village site, anything goes, we need to pull it out of the sand. We turn around, we look at it, whoa, what is going on here? And better than these holes are looking for diagnostic information. Is this just a geofact or is it an artifact? And I'm going to turn him around and let you hopefully make that decision. There should be some diagnostic information on the inside, on the sides of these two holes. It's a remnant of drill or a bore where they were trying to put these holes in it. What I find interesting is we have like, I'm not going to call them eyes. I'm not going to call that a nose. And I'm not going to call that a mouth. But if I turn him around, again, I'm not going to call these eyes. I'm not going to call this a mouth. But the whole thing is oxidized. We're on a village site. And literally anything goes on a village site. And you're going to come on those when you're out walking in the field. And you've got to know when to put the brakes on, get it in first gear, take the time and really look. I'm going to close out with one more thing. And I had shared this with you, my Hershey's Kiss. And because this is something that is still a big unknown, and congratulations to all of you, whether you're on the Ohio River or the Wabash over in Indiana or wherever you are, wherever you live. These are tough to find. And but you know what? All four of these have one thing in common. And one of the people who was unable to make it this morning because of the snow was with me when I found this one. Each one of these was like this. This is what I saw. Round, 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 round. Color, shape. I would say this, shape. Anything that's in a round, and it's going to take a lot of, if you're in a glaciated area, if you're on a glacial moraine area, it's going to be a lot of poking and picking. But shape, if you've got a circular thing that's buried, pop it out of the ground. If it's the right color, pop it out of the ground. This one was the right color. And I knew almost immediately that it was what we call hematite. It's a very heavily iron-based rock. And I'm going to flip him over so that you can see it. Hopefully you can see some of the polish on it. This is really an unusual piece. And if you get the Ohio Archaeologist magazine, this last one that just came out was their awards for all the field walkers for this past year. And this guy happened to get a blue ribbon for its category. And it's neat, it's unique, and you're going to find these pieces. But like I said, my job is to pour into your brain everything I've learned in my lifetime. You can sift through it. Some of it will be helpful, and some of it a lot of you might disagree with, and I hope so, because it's going to push us harder to learn. And I keep threatening to get a little piece of aluminum and go scotch tape it to this guy. Somebody asked, is it possible that they use these cones as a hammerstone? That was a good question. And you're going to get to meet that person in a minute. And I love it. I love people that take me further than I've been before. Round, round, round. Each one is made out of a different material. So I can't draw a line and say, this is the only material you're going to find for cones. And this one, and I know a lot of us are going to debate about this one, but color and round. And for that reason, I dug it. And then when I flip him, this is heavily prehistoric polish right here. And I showed you this before, but what's really unique is 3/4 of the way around is a scoring mark. I see this scoring on stone tools, but I especially see it on slate, that it was one of the means that they scored to snap and get a clean break on items. Did they do that with this piece? I don't know. Cones, celts, out of a village site fire pit, hammerstones, different materials. So what I did with you is I mentioned the power of color, shape, size, texture, and exotic. And in this case, this type of sandstone is simply not found in the county, in the area where this came from. So I saw the round, I saw the fine texture of the sandstone, and I knew I had something, and pulled them out of the ground right away. If you can just put that together in your head and review these things. Very dear friend of mine had an idea for a book that we should write. I'm going to probably co-author that with them. And to let this become alive, I promise, as I'm sitting here with you right now, this coming spring, you're going to come back and say, wow, Mark, my life has changed. This has changed my life. So I'm going to say goodbye in a minute. And we have another wonderful video that'll be right in the footsteps of this one. So thank you for being cuddly, snuggly, warm fireplace inside, miles away from a marsh that was just down the road. And we'll see you real soon. Thanks for coming.